Thank you for joining for this episode of the TechSpective podcast. My guest this week is Bharat Jogi from Qualys. So Bharat, if you could just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your role at Qualys.
Sure. Thanks, Tony, for inviting me on this podcast. It's certainly nice talking to you. My name is Bharat Jogi. I head the vulnerability and threat research at Qualys. Ever since my high school days, I was interested in cybersecurity. I was always passionate about cybersecurity. I started very early doing CTFs, loved analyzing malware, viruses, etc. I started my professional journey in cybersecurity back in 2006. And I joined Qualys as a security researcher analyzing and reverse engineering vulnerabilities. And now I head the Qualys's global team of security researchers.
All right. So I guess so, I mean, I've talked with other researchers. I work in the industry, so I understand at a conceptual level how that works.
Mm-hmm.
But give me a little bit about I guess a little bit of detail on how your team is made up. But then also, I'm curious, just when you wake up, you go to work, you start doing what you do. How do you how are you basically identifying, like how are you deciding what to research?
Exactly. So to give some details about the Qualys security research team, our team is spread across the globe. We have researchers in different parts of US, in India, Spain, UK, France. So primarily, like our team is spread across the globe. And primarily, our researchers, belong to, broadly speaking, two different groups. One group of security researchers are focused, they are laser focused, looking at every, check-ins that happen. We obviously have a ton of monitoring and feeds that we have subscribed to. We have built our own monitoring, social media monitoring tools, so that our researchers are alerted of anything and everything that is happening out. And their focus is primarily, looking at what is happening out there, what are the critical vulnerabilities that are disclosed on a daily basis, what is the, like, once a vulnerability is disclosed, how large is the, how many, how it could affect, our customers, or the entire infosec community in general. And then they try to reverse engineer them, create detection mechanisms to provide, countermeasures, remediation, etc. for these vulnerabilities.
Okay.
The other group of security researchers that we have are tasked primarily at discovering new zero-day vulnerabilities. They are, reading the source code. They are doing reverse engineering. They are, every time Microsoft or any other prominent vendors releases patch, they are quickly, reverse engineering them, diffing the patches to understand, how they can, identify more 0 days, and then this responsibility disclosed to the vendors.
Okay, so it sounds like so like one group is a little, like, more on the vulnerability research side, and the other group is more of a threat hunting side, which is what's sort of going to be my next question, which was that difference between, there's one thing to take, a vulnerability that's disclosed or known, and then try to do the research to figure out, okay, well, what is the scope of the impact of this, and how do we protect against this, and all those things. And then the other is that looking for the 0 days. It's trying to stay a step ahead. And and a lot of times when I talk with people on that side of the research fence, that involves sort of being active, surreptitiously on the dark web, and trying to pay attention to, like, okay, well, what are the bad guys talking about?
Yeah.
and trying to kind of follow those breadcrumbs. That to me that's more like the James Bond aspect of it. Or that seems like the more fun version of kind of getting to play sort of like gray hat hacker and kind of like get in there and try to secretly figure out what the other guys are doing.
That's very as you mentioned, like a James Bond kind of a thing. Like it's very fun. We monitor all this forums, what they are talking about, and like oftentimes a lot of funny things happen, but we often find some really really critical information which help us keep us ahead of our game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm I wouldn't say I'm close friends, but I'm friends with Brian Krebs, and I follow Brian, what Brian Krebs does, and it's always funny to me because a lot of time he's finding he's getting information fed to him or finding things. You just find basically an information dump on the web, and that's kind of your first sign that Target or Sony or whoever has been breached. Like Target or Sony don't even know they've been breached yet.
Yeah,
exactly. And Brian Krebs or some other researcher is coming to them and being like, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but 20 gigabytes of your data is out there on the.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously, yes, there is a ton of information available in the open source, intelligence, and obviously dark web forums, etc. And we try to monitor and see what the bad actors are talking about, and that has definitely helped us, providing our customers with detection as early as possible, so that we are identifying these threats in their environment, and that's definitely one of the cores of what Certainty does.
Okay. All right, so let's talk then a little bit more about something you guys have specifically worked on, discovered. I know that that you just recently you've been looking at Sequoia. So give me a little bit, I guess on that. Can you tell me a little bit more about Sequoia and like how you guys discovered it and what's the process that you go through in terms of I always mix up like what's the term we're going with now. I don't think it's responsible disclosure. I think we got rid of that one, but it's I
believe it's now called as coordinated responsible disclosure.
Yes, it's the coordinated part.
Yeah.
So basically, what did you find? How did you find it? And what did the disclosure process look like?
So the most recent discovery that we made, as you mentioned, it was named as Sequoia. It was a privilege escalation vulnerability in Linux kernel's file system component. It affected most of the Linux distributions in their default configurations, and any unprivileged user can abuse this vulnerability to gain root privileges. Our team also developed a fully functional exploit code for this, and one of the a lot of times when researchers are disclosing the vulnerability, they are unable to create like a fully functional exploit. In this particular case with Sequoia, the exploitation, one of the at least I would say achievements for the team was we were able to create a fully functional exploit. Now typically if you look at the exploit, these are like to exploit these like the exploit code might look like 15, 20, 30 lines of code. This particular Sequoia exploit that we built, it required the exploit code itself is 2,000 lines of code. So the exploitation for this vulnerability was really, really tough. But our team pulled it through and created a fully functional exploit for this. We also received a Pony nomination for this vulnerability for the recently held Pony Awards at Black Hat in the month of August. In fact, our research team got 5 nominations in the 2021 Pony Award, and we were also declared winners in 2 categories. So I'm super proud of the team accomplishments. We have some very interesting work coming that the team is working on. So obviously stay tuned for that.
Okay. Well, and kudos on the the recognition and the accolades. One of the other things that I know, and I want to make sure the audience knows. I'm sure you know, but when you find the vulnerability and and you do the research on the exploit and all that, and that's one piece. But a lot of attacks today are multifaceted. They're chained together. So that some vulnerabilities you might look at it by itself and say, oh well, that's not that big a deal. I mean, yes, it would be a problem if this, and this, but it's the this and this that are the issue. So when an attacker says, yes, what if I can get in using this exploit, and I can compromise this using this exploit, and then I can jump over and use this exploit, and it's the kind of the perfect storm, the combination of the exploits that really is the where the risk is.
Yeah. So that's definitely a very good point that you brought up. I'll give some more details around, so one of the awards that we received last month for the Pony Awards was for the 21 nails vulnerability that we discovered in the XIM server. And the example that you mentioned, like we changed the expert vulnerability. So that's exactly what we demonstrated in the for the XIM vulnerabilities, where a remote user can exploit the XIM vulnerable XIM server, and then from there they can elevate privileges to get full root user access on the affected Linux machine. So we changed the code execution and the privilege escalation vulnerability, where a attacker can just send a couple of requests to the XM server, and he can completely take over the root privileges of the Linux server on which the XM server is installed. So it was also very cool, and I think we received a Pony Award in the most underhyped vulnerability for the year 2021.
Well, and which is interesting, and it's a sort of part of the point I was trying to make is again some vulnerabilities might not seem that sexy by themselves, and someone who's not in security and not a security researcher might look at it and kind of be like, okay, well that seems kind of boring. Why would I even care about that? But it's a little bit like, let's say on a consumer level, when it comes to privacy, there's a lot of people who are like, why do I care if they know, my birth date or whatever? Like by itself, what are you going to do with that? And it's like, well, it's not the by itself part that matters. It's the when they have your birth date and your name and your address, and they can piece all these things together. So each one of those pieces by itself seems innocuous. It's when you put it all together that it's a problem.
Together is when, and I think that's like one of the researchers, that I know, he is very, very good at analyzing the information that is available, that is publicly available, tying these pieces together, and we have seen, that based on this, they are able to create a profile of that person and use this information to guess their password. And it's incredible, like how many times this researcher that I worked with in past, that he is able to tie this information together, build a profile of an individual, and then basically he's able to guess, use that information to guess passwords. So it's all kind of things are possible. So obviously, I know we live in this age where people tend to share a lot, but I think that's one thing that people should be mindful of when they are sharing information all over the places.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's been driving me crazy lately, and if you're on Facebook at all, I'm sure you've seen it, but there's this just growing trend of, they seem like kitschy trivia questions, like, "Hey, this is just fun. Let's all share. What was the first car you ever had?" And I'm like, "No, don't share that."
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you share that? And and yet you go look, and there's 575,000 responses to this this quiz question or whatever, and I've had people push back on me, and they're like, "Look, it's some FM radio station out of Kansas City, like they're not trying to hack you." And I'm like, okay, yes, I get that the Facebook account is some radio station in Kansas City, and maybe they honestly did think it was just a fun question or whatever, but I'm like, it's still sketchy.
Yeah.
And you're still sharing this. You're still sharing information that is, literally one of the top 10, security check questions.
Exactly. Yeah. That's and that is why an ongoing debate, right? Like multi-factor authentication. Why we need to do this, so on and so forth. So it's very essential that at least in my opinion, I tend to share as less as possible. But I know we all agree that we live in this digital age where our information is all over the place.
Right. So we alluded to this a little bit already in the conversation we've had, but one of the other questions that I wanted to get to is sort of, I guess it's kind of a two-parter. Number one is, do you have an overarching, is there a mission statement that that drives what you do as the Qualys research team? But then beyond that, sort of, with today's attacks, again, I'm going to kind of pull this back to the chained exploits and the more complex attacks. What do you feel is sort of the value and the importance of of what you do, of research when it comes to more sophisticated threat actors and these more complex attacks?
Sure. So Tony, cyber criminals launch sophisticated attacks against our assets and are exploiting our ever-increasing attack surface on a daily basis. Defending against such attacks is what drives the Qualys research team. As a part of our research process, we routinely investigate weaknesses in software packages that could lead to compromise, and we responsibly disclose them to the vendors, and often in times that we have helped those researchers build patches, test these patches for them. Numerous times that we have created these patches ourselves and provided these researchers provide these patches to the vendors so that they can if not directly incorporate these patches, they can at least take those as a guidance. I believe security research is in Qualys's DNA. Qualys recognizes the criticality of this program, and prioritizes conducting research to find vulnerabilities before the attackers do. I think that's what drives our researchers, and in some sense, this is our way of giving back to the InfoSec community that has helped us thrive.
Okay. How we're now going on I don't know, month 18 of the COVID pandemic, and who knows where the end of the tunnel is at this point. But obviously so that fundamentally changed things from two perspectives, I think, for you. Number one is the changing the attack surface, changing like, what do we have to look at? Because now everyone's working from home, they're on their home networks, they're using their personal computers, and that changes the dynamic of trying to protect them.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of it, which is your team as well is, working from home and work, and is impacted by that to some extent. So, basically like, give me your thoughts on, what has the impact of the pandemic and quarantining and all these things, how has that affected, what you guys do, or, investments by companies in research and things like that?
Sure. I think in past year with this pandemic, it has brought significant attention to the cybersecurity. I think one of the most important things that and I think yesterday itself, CISA also released some alerts. With everybody working from home, VPN infrastructure for all organizations, became a very critical component. And attackers they were very quick. I think if you look at all the most exploited vulnerabilities over the period of last year or so, they are affecting all the VPN servers like Citrix, PulseSecure, probably every one of these vendors were compromised. Their products had critical vulnerabilities. CISA time and again has released, guidance as to how an organization can protect VPN infrastructure, so on and so forth. And I think CISOs and business leaders responded very well to the pandemic by quickly instituting measures to maintain business continuity as well as protecting against these cyber threats. Part of protecting organizations is proactively finding vulnerabilities, their diligence, maintaining compliance standards, and I think the research team are the core component of this. And business leaders have recognized this, and at least in my opinion, they are making positive investments in building their research team.
Okay, so you just talked about kind of business leaders recognizing, which kind of brings me to my next question, which is about I've worked in and around and written about cybersecurity for going on 20 years. I know that the focus on cybersecurity has definitely increased. Like more organizations today at least understand the risk and they know that it's a thing they should focus on. A lot of them are still doing it poorly, but
they'll catch up sometime.
So so my question is, as security becomes more prevalent, it's more of an upfront conversation that organizations are having. How do you see kind of the role of research evolving and what you do and the impact it has on kind of the future of security?
That's a very interesting question, Tony. As the industry goes through this rapid digital transformation, our environments are more hybrid than ever before. Also, the attacks, I believe, as it's very evident with the supply chain attacks, the ransomware attacks, they are getting more and more sophisticated. Along with this, there are new regulations, privacy laws. Users seek to have more control over their data. They need more transparency. Due to all these reasons, I believe the security teams are going to play more and more vital role. Critical business decisions, if not already, they would be made around security, keeping security and privacy in mind. It's inevitable. Security has to be built in, and it cannot be bolted on.
Okay. Well, and there again, I would say, having been doing this for a while, I feel like we've been saying that for a while too. Like that sentiment in and of itself isn't new. I do feel like, again, I think more people get it, and more people are aware of that sentiment. But even back when I was working as a security architect, back in 2005, and my jobs was developers would write software, and there had to be a security QA check on that software before it was allowed to be released to production. But that was the final step, basically. Like, they'd already done their requirements gathering. They spent months developing the software, and then they would put it on my desk and say, "Hey, can you review this and make sure that it's secure?" And I'm like, "Well, what am I supposed to do with that?" Like at that point, now I'm the bad guy. I go back to them and go, "Hey, look, I know you just spent 9 months doing this, but no, you can't release this."
Yeah, but I think more and more organizations are now adopting, the shift left approach. There are tools, processes in place where, as soon as developers are, at the time of just developing the code, and they check in the code, there are like various dependency checkers, etc., to make sure that, they are not using any, at least, they are not using any vulnerability. And I think even I think the CISA, etc., are recommending all organizations now going forward, to provide like a software visibility tool, so that, if especially this would be very helpful when you have like third party code running in your environment, so that you have a very good visibility into, what is something that you are buying into, what are they, and if those products are inherently secure or not. I think all this would be, obviously there would be bad actors. I don't think that, bad actors are going away. But I think this would certainly help, creating and building robust security products that we can live with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, things have, between the secure development life cycle and just kind of more DevOps principles and more iterations of, it's much less there's not really a beginning and an end to development. It's just an ongoing process that has done a lot for making things more secure. So I wanted to basically thank you for joining me, and just say, and thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of Qualys customers and the world at large. As we wrap, is there anything, any parting thoughts you have, or any question I didn't ask that you'd like to make sure we hit on?
No, I think it was definitely a very good conversation. As I believe at Qualys, we are doing some quality research, but as you would understand, and I think there are like every other day, more or less, I read some articles saying, hey, dearth of cybersecurity talent. Companies are finding hard to find people for their security and research teams. And while I am blessed that over the course of like we have a very good security research team, but I would also like to use I would also like to reach out to your viewers, your listeners, that we are always looking to hire. So if you have anybody who would like to be part of our research team, please reach out to me directly or to anyone at Qualys. We keep posting, check out the careers at Qualys, and help us in our mission to keep protecting our customers and helping the InfoSec community in general.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks a lot, Tony. It was really nice talking to you. It was a pleasure being on your show.
All right, thanks.
I appreciate you investing your time to listen to the podcast, but I also invite you to engage on social media. Please go like our Facebook page and follow at TechSpective on Twitter and Instagram. You can feel free to let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like, let me know if you love it, let me know if it sucks. and let me know what products you'd like to see reviewed or what questions you'd like to see answered in future posts.